so today we're here with Alaina Lewis of Culver Props in Rolla, Missouri. Gonna get a short factory tour and get a little bit more like a behind-the-scenes look of what she does here. You've probably seen her on Instagram. She posts nearly daily on Instagram, Facebook, and I think she just started a YouTube channel.
Yep.
To kind of give everybody a look of what she does on a daily basis. And so can you tell me a little bit about how you got started? I know that your grandfather started this business with your family, but just like a short summary of how you got into this.
Sure. So Grandpa was a crop duster, and he got his medical pulled when he had open heart surgery. So after that, he made his own ultralight, and then he put a VW engine on it, and he made his own prop speed reduction unit. And with that, he had Culver design a prop for it. And then when Culver went out of business, then he actually just called and said, hey, can we buy it? And they said, sure. So we had it all trucked down from Pennsylvania, and that was in 2000. And now we're prop makers.
Okay, so who all is involved here to help you do the props? I understand, like I said, that your family was involved, but you're mentioning now that it's more of you kind of taking the reins of this business.
Sure. The guys, they made the airplanes, so we don't make our backyard flyer anymore. But I went ahead and kept making the propellers. And the guys come and they help me about 10-15 minutes a day. Other than that, I do it all on my own.
So it's really a one-woman show here.
Yeah, and my grandma helps me. She's here every single day, and she ships all of my propellers.
Nice.
We generally use birch for color. It does a really nice job. But our main go-to staple is the mahogany, or is the maple. Mostly maple, especially on anything that's on super high horsepower engines, we go with straight maple. We use maple, mahogany, birch, and sometimes cherry.
So you get this wood already planed and dried, ready to use, or do you have to plane?
I get it kiln dried, and it is planed on both sides, and then sometimes they don't do a good enough job and I plane it again myself. And then once it's all the way I like it, then we go ahead and glue it up. We use a DAP plastic weldwood resin. It takes 14 hours for it to cure. At 75 degrees, which is sometimes hard in the winter to keep this whole building at 75. So some days I don't get to glue up, but most days I'm able to. So it takes 14 hours for it to stay in the press at about 75 psi for 14 hours.
Okay. And going back to the wood for a second, after you plane it, you have to do any additional sanding before you sandwich it together, or is that rough enough to be able to accept, I guess, the glue? Or
I do a 60 grit, just kind of go over it to make sure that it's nice and clean, and I blow it all off with the air hose, and so it's ready.
That's their only real prep work involved before gluing, to make sure it adheres right and so forth.
Right.
Okay.
So the next step is that we trace these out. So this is my template. This is actually going on an Aerolite 103, and I will trace it out. And after I trace it out, I will cut it out on the bandsaw. This particular one is going to be 3 laminations for a 2 1/4 hub thickness, but the laminations and hub thicknesses vary depending on, possibly the spinner, what the spinner calls for, or The pitch, anything over 50 inches of pitch gets upgraded from 2 1/4 to a 3-inch hub thickness. Or, you know, the amount of horsepower, things like that, all determine your hub thickness and how many laminations we have.
Nice. Okay, so from this stage, after we trace it out, then you take it over directly to the
Bandsaw.
The bandsaw. Okay. And let's talk about how you set that up over there. So you literally just do a very rough trace of the form initially.
Yes, you can cut outside the line, but not inside the line.
All right, so Alaina is going to show us real quickly how she cuts this out on the bandsaw nearly every day of her life. Obviously she has a little practice with that. I think that would be a little wonky on my lines there. After the bandsaw, of course it's a long process, so I won't have time to show all of that, but Alaina will be able to show that on her Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube pages. After the bandsaw, then several layers get glued together, and then after they're glued together, they come over here to the press. So tell me about the process you use to put into the press, the amount of pounds, and for how long, and so forth.
Sure. So on this prop, this is a 5 lamination propeller. It's going on a Hatz biplane with an 0290 engine on it. So it's going to be a 74 by 46. Now normally I would make that out of 3 inches, but his spinner required 3 3/4. So this is going to be 5 laminations. And I put it in the press for 14 hours. It takes 14 hours for the glue to cure at 75 degrees.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and let all the pressure off.
What is the max size prop that this press can hold, or what is the max size prop that you have done on this press, I guess?
102 inches. Now 102 inches is the finished propeller, but you can see I have all this extra that I use to attach it to the lathe. So I'm not sure how long my overall was, but it was so big that they torched a hole. They torched a hole in this side of the
so you could fit a longer
press
prop in
so
there?
that we could get that extra long. We had to do the put it in and get it for this spot here. So,
Right, so 102 inches is the max prop that you can create
right.
with this machinery. Okay.
Right.
And then from here, it's been pressed, all the glue is squished out. What's the next step?
I'll take it over here and put it on the sawhorses.
Need help with that?
Yep.
Okay, so after the press, it comes out of the press, bring it back over to the table here, and what's the next step?
So from this point, my grandma actually comes over and knocks all this extra glue off. It is super, super razor sharp, but she knocks it all off. and then she cleans it all up for me. And then I'll take it over to the press and I will drill the center pilot hole, and I'll drill the end attachment points for the lathe, and then it goes straight into the lathe.
Oh, sorry, Grandma's gonna be in it. Okay, little rabbit trail here. We have to introduce Grandma over here, who's hiding at the table. So, Grandma, can you say hello and introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Juanita Smith, Alaina's grandmother.
And I understand you knock glue off. What else do you do here?
Yes, I do. And I cut wood that she mows in the floor, like right there. And I go get kids from school.
So you were telling me a short story about Grandpa coming in at midnight, flying these planes or something like that. What was that?
Tell him about Grandpa.
Oh, he would stay out too late, and we had lights in our yard, but they didn't shine enough on the runway. So I would sit at the end of the runway with my lights on down the.
So in your car?
So he could come in and land.
Yeah. Is this in the backyard flyer or crop
Just
duster?
crop duster.
Crop duster. Nice.
3 in the morning and shovel cow poop off the runway, and then she helped load. Her and my dad loaded all the spray into the barrels, and
full of chemical.
they'd sleep on the barrels in between his flights. Then they'd hear him come in, and they'd get up and load the next round, and there they'd go.
The life of a crop duster. The stories that you don't usually hear about.
Yeah, it's real exciting.
All right, no more rabbit trailing. Back to work. So the next stage here, we're going to get set up. Alaina's going to explain the next step.
Okay, so this is I'm going to drill my bolt pattern here. So I'm going to shape the hub. This is my template. So I just put it on like this. Make my circle. That'll tell me, except for it didn't mark. Redo! I need my pencil.
All right, so everybody, I just found out that Alaina has a need of some usable number 2 pencils, if you want to send her a few pencils, because that one wasn't working. All right, back at it.
Okay, so here is our template for our face. This is what I call the face of the propeller. So this is the lines that I'm going to cut off of when I take it to the bandsaw to cut all this extra material off of.
Is that the line, or is that like a rough cut? You need to stay like a quarter off of that one.
Oh no, that's my line. It's the line.
That is the line. Okay.
I will cut close and sand closer. Okay, more bandsaw work. Too much hair.
So that's one of those girl power problems that us guys don't have to deal with. So no, obviously you can't smell any of this on TV, but this wood being cut smells really amazing. What's the type of wood again?
This is mahogany. this is going to be a hot air balloon inflation prop, and it's actually cutoffs from my big 90-inch Bristol fighter propeller.
What?
I caught you.
I make a vest too. And I clean it up too.
Okay, so the next step after bandsawing off kind of the contour, that we go over to the barrel sander, where Alaina puts on her hazmat apparatus to start sanding.
About mahogany is it sands so fast, but you can also screw up so fast. But these go pretty fast. They're going to get square tips, and we're going to go ahead and use the belt sander.
So you're going to get rid of all those lines.
Yes.
So you just sand so you don't see them anymore, or basically?
This one will take out most of the lines, and then I use my orbital sander to take out those lines, and then I'll use 110 grit sand here to take out those lines.
Okay. So you literally just have to take out the lines, and that is your end. There's no other template you have to, as a guide, to check the airfoil shape, if you will?
Right.
Okay.
Just my eyeball. Out.
Okay, so the sanding's done, and the next step over here is to get it balanced.
Okay, so what we're doing here is we're going to balance it. This is a static balance. We're going to balance it vertically and horizontally. So this one still needs a little bit. It's a little heavy on this side.
So if it's off just a degree or two to the left or to the right, you see, is when you need to balance it some more.
Yeah, and to do that, I will take material off of this side of the hub. So I will take it off where, first I'll take out any defects on that side, any little scratches, any little minor anythings. Then I'll come back and I'll take it off where it's not noticeable. You know, maybe smooth this out a little bit more, or bring this in just a little bit more. And then after I do that, the very, very, very last resort is to put lead in the hub. A lot of people do it, it's totally acceptable. I just hate to do it. So I work very, very hard to make sure that they don't have lead in them, even though it is absolutely acceptable.
So at this point, you don't do anything for the prop fin itself. Everything is done at the hub for balancing.
For vertical balance.
For vertical balancing.
So then the next thing we check is horizontal balance. And we are just a teeny, teeny, tiny bit off. Or a little bit more than a sticky note. So I just try to find things that make it balance, like maybe it is just the piece of sandpaper is way too much. So looking for something a little less than sandpaper, but a little bit more than a sticky note.
Now, paint will have an effect on this well, or your clear coat or whatever, correct?
Yes.
So is there another balancing done after that, or you just try to put it on thin enough that it shouldn't be a factor?
Generally, it's something that I spot check. So most of the time, if I have them perfect right now, then when I go to spray them, they'll still be within tolerance after I spray them.
So they're sprayed, not brushed at that
Right,
point?
they're
Okay.
sprayed. So, but I do spot checks every once in a while just to make sure, but I generally don't have any problems.
So very basic, very simple, but this is what's been done for years and years and years to balance props.
Exactly. Okay, so this here is what is called a leading edge inlay. It's actually something that I don't do. What they do is they just take a bandsaw and they cut off this leading edge, and sometimes they even drill down into the prop, and that's what anchors it. And I don't like doing anything invasive to my propellers, so I don't drill any holes other than the bolt pattern. I don't cut away any original material. So for leading edge, all we offer is the leading edge tape, which does a really good job. It's cheap and you can replace it all on your own anytime you need it. But this is what a inlay leading edge looks like.
Nice. Obviously there's a machine which we'll go over here in just a minute to look at that holds the original dimension and contour prop, and then that kind of copies onto the blank and cuts that out. So I'm wondering where does that come from?
When we bought the company, we had about 300 patterns that came with it. Some Mr. Culver made himself, actually quite a few of them, most of them. And then there were some that every owner, I think we're about the 4th owners, have made over the years. And then there's some that we've made. Grandpa made a few. I made my very first one this year for a Bristol Fighter, which was really exciting. And so we've just collected them. Everyone has, every owner has added a little bit to the company.
See, way up there is a whole stack of them on the wall.
We have everything from these like.
Wow, talk about the attic.
Okay, so
This is the attic at Culver Props here. As you can see, there's like skeletons hanging of propellers everywhere, essentially.
that was actually one of the very first things I did. These were all just in these tubs, these old glue tubs. And one of the first things I did was I came up here and I started organizing them all. And I nailed all these nails in to hang them on. And I drove Grandpa nuts. I mean, just day after day of me just, hammering away all day long. One day he's like, Alaina, you've got to quit. I got to have a break.
That is awesome. There's literally about, 100 hanging?
There's probably 200. So they're all in diameter, and then they're in right and left hand rotation, and then they're in pitch is how I organized them. So these are all 2 1/4.
This is your Dewey Decimal System up here?
This is all 2 1/4, and it starts at 60 inches. It'll go all the way down to 70 inches, and it starts with left-handed, then goes to right-handed, and it goes from lower pitch to higher pitch. Is the idea.
Wow. So there is some method to the madness up here. Wow, that is amazing.
Tiny bit.
And then those are all the initial patterns for the blanks right there.
Yeah, these are all of our templates. These are all my 50-inch templates, all my 60-inch templates, and all my 70s and all my 80s.
Wow. Get really huge back there.
Yeah, these are all of our, these are a lot that we made. We made this one, and this one, and this one. Yes, I work out every single day. Every day. So this is going on a Lycoming 0290. Almost all Lycoming patterns have a 2 1/4 center pilot hole. That's what we're going to be drilling this one today.
Okay, so we've got the center hole drilled on this thing, and now what's the next step here?
We're going to drill these end attachment points, and all 3 of these attachment points have to be in a straight line. And if they're off, it will mess up my vertical balance and make it very, very difficult for me.
So how did you learn all this stuff? Did you just hang out at the shop with Grandpa pretty much all the time and just picked up on this, or did he give you any formal training, or how old were you when you first started doing this?
20?
Okay.
About 20, 21.
And you're 22 now?
No, I'm going to be 33 next month.
Nice. All right, so Alaina has done the center hole. She's plunged the center hole on this prop, and the next thing is to do the center line so she can actually have it cut. So you have to squint.
I have brown eyes. They're better. They're more accurate than other color eyes. So you can see that my holes were just a little bit off, so I trued them up. I made my mark with my pencil, and that's actually going to be the hole that I drilled.
And this is what's going to lock it into the machine to carve it.
Yes. Actually, going to put it here because we're going to need to put our pattern in. This will go much faster. Take it out. I'm going to put in my 74-inch pattern for this biplane prop. Okay.
So this is the pattern. You only need 1/2 of it to create it because you're only doing 1/2 at a time.
Exactly. So this is the same deal. We're going to index off of the engine side. So I'm actually going to put the pattern in this way because it's a tractor configuration. Oh no, disaster. I got backups.
So it's just literally clamped in, and you have your alignment hole at the top there, correct? So that's that bolt, alignment bolt, and then clamped. And then same thing at this end. So other than changing the saw blades, which you can see here, and you use 2 saw blades offset?
2 10-tooth saw blades, yes.
Other than swapping those out after so many props, is that really the only maintenance you have to do to this?
Oh yeah, I blow it off. I oil all my gears, and learned this the other day. You have to tighten your coupler. That was new as of last week. So when I set it up in here, I make sure that this is centered, and I also make sure my tip is centered because I want to make sure that it is in the stroke of my machine evenly, and then I also want to make sure that it is evenly within my block of wood. So I'm going to make a test rotation here. See what I got. So I'm looking at the sawdust line right here and making sure when it hits the trailing edge and when it hits the airfoil edge that it comes down and hits that mark. That means I'm perfectly centered within the stroke of the machine. Okay, so we have flat side up, flat side up. That's good, that's good. The center of this prop is coming out in relationship to the shaft. It's at the top of the shaft here. So I'm going to make sure that the very center of this prop, this blank, comes out to the center top of this shaft so that it cuts out in the same spot in the blank. If I move it up or down, then the tip may come out here or the tip may come out down here, which will have an effect on the propeller. So we like to keep it straight in the center. Okay, so I'm making a check, a rotation to make sure that everything's the way I want it. I put a shim up here to hold the blade that much away from my final cut. So I'll make a rough cut on this blade, I'll make a rough cut on the second blade, and then I'll make a final cut and then a final cut. Props like this still kind of give me that sick feeling in my stomach whenever I start them because they're big props. All right, so saw blade.
All right, so we've kind of walked you through the process of how a prop is made here at Culver Props, and now I was going to ask Alaina here what's the process of actually ordering one, and she's saying that basically each one is a custom order, and this is the steps that is necessary to get that order.
So I ask a lot of questions whenever I take an order. You know, of course, airplane and what people expect out of it. A lot of people may have the exact same airplane and engine, but they have different requirements that they want out of it. Some only want takeoff, some want a lot of cruise. So I take that into consideration whenever I pick the pitch. This is my speed chart that I use for anything that doesn't have a reduction. So I just take the RPMs at cruise and the expected speed, and that'll give me a pitch. And then I take the max RPM and the max speed at full throttle, straight and level, and that will give me a pitch. And if those two pitches match, then I know that we're pretty solid in what we're expectations wise and what's actually feasible. So if those two match, then we're good. If those two numbers don't match, then that means we probably have some miscommunication or some expectation that's not right out of the engine. And we go back and we work through those. And then after we get that, if they say, hey, you know, I really want to make sure that I have really good climb. For us, it was because we had power lines at both ends of our runway. So we always erred on the side of climb. So whatever pitch I came up with, I'd go ahead and drop it 1 to 2 inches. And what that does is, it's not a whole lot, it's just a little. It just favors it in the side of climb. It's about 100 RPM per inch of pitch. And it's about 100 RPM per inch of diameter too, per inch of diameter. So anytime you make those adjustments, that's just the tiny little adjustment that you're gonna see in your RPM range.
Okay, so after you get all this information, and what's the lead time basically on building a prop after that information?
Lead time is right at 6 weeks. I have a lot of really big props on order right now, which is a good thing. And so it's about 6 weeks. They're all custom made. It's nothing that I have pre-glued up or that I have on the shelf. They're all specific made to the customer's needs. So it takes a little time.
Okay. And again, just what's the different sizes that you make for props, the range?
Sure, I make anything from about, the 24-inch balloon inflation props to my biggest is 102 inches. And that's one that I have right now that I've just finished making. And it's going on full scale, SC5 replica. I'm really excited to see that one on.
Nice, nice. And as far as venues we talked earlier, she can be found at Oshkosh. That event in the light sport ultralight section of Oshkosh.
Yeah, we made it every year. I think we're on 28 years consecutively that I've been to Oshkosh.
Nice. And also, to get a hold of you, if people haven't already found you on the web, you're at, what's the website?
Culverprops.com.
And you'll also be found on Instagram as Culver Props. Facebook.
It's Culver Props.
And now YouTube.
Yeah, we're trying it.
Now YouTube. All right. Well, thank you very much for talking with me and spending a couple hours this morning on getting some really good video showing your equipment and your entire shop, which we're going to have some other hopefully good panoramic view of that. So until next time, thanks for watching Experimental Aircraft Channel.